What is good, all you Dolphins fans out there? So I know now, at the conclusion of the season, there's a lot of Dolphins fans that are conflicted when it comes to Tua Tagovailoa as the future franchise quarterback of this team. But something that is obviously being overlooked is the weapons that he was surrounded by in 2020. We all know that he needs major upgrades all across the field, but to first get a better understanding of what we saw from Tua in his first season, we must first take a deeper dive into what exactly he had to work with in 2020. Miami Dolphins receivers this past season were among the worst in the league in regards to yards after the catch and separation gained when running routes. Dolphins players averaged a mere 4.4 yards after the catch, which is just abysmal, not even 5 yards, which was 30th in the league. Among 197 NFL receivers, Devontae Parker's 2.7 yards after catch on average was 173rd out of 197 receivers, and second worst among players that were targeted at least 100 times. Preston Williams was 177th in yards after catch with 2.5 before his season-ending foot injury, and Isaiah Ford was tied for 177th at 2.5. So even though Parker and Williams are big, talented receivers that can beat anyone on any given day, they really don't do much in regards to, creating offense after the catch, which is incredibly important for an offense to flourish. And we didn't see much of that last season under Fitzpatrick and Tua. Lynn Bowden Jr. was 107th at 4.2, and Jakeem Grant was the only Dolphins receiver in the top half of the league with 5.1 yards after the catch. But even though Jakeem, was good in that regard, we all know that, man, he had some major drop issues last season. He really did, make Tua look bad on a couple of deep balls, and, that definitely would have elevated people's opinions of Tua if Jakeem could come down with those deep balls that we saw against, I can't remember who it was at this point, but it was like 4 or 5 games ago. Then there's the biggest issue of this offense, and that's separation. So many of the passes delivered by Tua needed to be thrown into tight windows because Dolphins receivers just weren't creating much separation at all. Devontae Parker, who was a Pro Bowler last season, only averaged 1.7 yards of separation from the corner covering him. Mike Gesicki, despite being a fairly athletic tight end with 4.5 speed and a 40-inch vertical, only averaged 2 yards of separation per route run, which was among the worst of all tight ends in the NFL. The numbers for the rest of the receivers and tight ends on the roster were well below average, so they're not even worth mentioning at all. So the result of this was Tua having to throw into incredibly tight coverage, and he had to do that on 20.3% of his throws. Among quarterbacks who had at least 8 starts, only Mitch Trubisky and Joe Burrow threw into tighter windows more often. Ryan Fitzpatrick threw into tight coverage 21.7% of his throws. And then there's this, which was incredibly eye-opening and, explains why the offense and Tua didn't look great at times. Dolphins receivers dropped 18 of Tua's passes. No quarterback who threw for nearly 300 pass attempts had as many passes dropped. And on the other side, Dolphins players dropped 14 passes from Fitzpatrick. So Miami had the 6th most drops in the league, which was very abysmal and disappointing to see. And man, that's just a lot of yards out there on the field. Devontae Parker had 7 drops, which was 9th most in the league. Jakeem Grant had 4, which was ranked for 36th most. And of the 29 passes thrown by Tagovailoa that travelled at least 20 yards in the air, 3 were dropped. Only 8 quarterbacks had more deep passes dropped. And you got to keep in mind that Dolphins receivers dropped none of Fitzpatrick's deep ball attempts, which is the reason why Fitzmagic is perceived to have a better year throwing deep balls. In fact, Tagovailoa would have been the better deep ball thrower if a majority of these passes, were completed. So, on to running backs. The good news is that Myles Gaskin established himself as a solid NFL running back. He averaged 97.2 yards from scrimmage per game, which was 10th for players with a minimum of 5 games. But that tells really only part of the story. The Dolphins averaged just 1.5 yards after contact per rushing attempt, which was worst in the league. By comparison, Derrick Henry of the Titans averaged 2.5, and the Bills averaged 2.3 yards after contact. Myles Gaskin, who I thought did a great job this year, breaking tackles, averaged 2.45 yards after contact, which was 83rd out of 142 backs. Salvon Ahmed averaged 2.32 yards after contact, which was 107th. And Matt Breida was at 2.41 yards after contact. And Jordan Howard, who was cut at mid-season, was absolutely abysmal. He only averaged 1.89 yards after contact. Dolphins running backs in 16 games only broke 19 tackles all year. Only 2 teams in the entire league broke fewer. The Vikings, on the other hand, broke 49, which isn't surprising when you have guys like Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. So beyond ranking worst in the league in rushing yards after contact, Miami was just 19th in rushing yards before contact at 2.5, which, affirms the notion that Miami's run blocking was below average. Overall, the Dolphins averaged 3.9 yards per carry, which ranked 29th in the league. Miami's longest run of the year went for 31 yards, which was the worst of any team in that category. And what's more, 17.9% of Dolphins' runs were stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage, which ranked 21st. So, man, we've really got to improve with that run blocking, but also we've got to bring in, much better, talented running backs. I mean, Salvon Ahmed had his moments. Myles Gaskin definitely improved in year 2, but God, we've got to draft a guy like Travis Etienne or Najee Harris to really lift this running game and just really, help to bring some balance and, support Tua in running the offense. And even Javonte Williams from North Carolina, he's an absolute unit. So, onto how the offensive line performed. The offensive line obviously was much improved over 2019. I was really impressed by what the rookies did. Robert Hunt, I think he did a great job on the right side coming in. Austin Jackson, man, I thought he would need time to mature and get ready for the position, but I thought he did a pretty good job. And Solomon Kidney, for a 4th round pick, man, he really did hold down the right guard spot, and he played a bit of left guard, but man, I thought those 3 guys did well, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in year 2. I think they're going to, just get wiser, stronger, and, this offensive line is only going to ascend in 2021. The line as a whole wasn't awful, but like I said, the 3 rookies have definitely got to grow from what we saw in 2020. But as a whole, I thought Jesse Davis did great. He played right tackle, he played left tackle, he played right guard, he played all over and did an all right job. But yeah, he really struggled later on in the season. And Eric Flowers as well really didn't play, too well when he came back from injury. Flowers gave up 5 sacks on the season. Only 5 NFL guards allowed more, and Solomon Kidney gave up 4 sacks. Austin Jackson also gave up 4 sacks and yielded 38 quarterback pressures, the 9th most overall among tackles, and most among players who played around 500 pass blocking snaps. PFF said of Austin Jackson, he struggled the most of the 5 first-round tackles who saw significant snaps on offense, which makes sense given our pre-draft analysis on him as a player. He was the rawest player and required the most work, like I said. His transition was aided when Miami inserted Tagovailoa into the starting lineup because the offense, really changed how we protected the passer and, having the benefit of also assisting the pass protection. From a run blocking standpoint, it's notable that runs behind left tackle Jackson in 13 games averaged only 3.79 yards per attempt, which was 24th out of 32 teams. Behind interior linemen Ted Karras, Flowers, and Kinley, and also Jesse Davis, Miami averaged 4 yards per rush, which was 28th. But behind right tackle Jesse Davis the first half of the season and Hunt most of the season, average runs of 5.23 yards per carry, which was 4th best, and that's an encouraging sign for Robert Hunt. He obviously, makes great lanes on the right side, and averaging 5.23 yards per rush behind Hunt, only affirms just how dominant he is physically. So that's it for the quick overview here of the offense, and it just shows, how much our receivers really did struggle to create separation, to create yards after the catch. Our running backs, really got to pick it up in 2021, and also the tight ends. I mean, Mike Gesicki, man, 2 yards of separation. Gesicki has really got to improve on that, and for a guy that's so athletic, you'd expect he'd be getting open, pretty much in every snap. You want to see him, run routes like a Travis Kelce, but he's a different kind of athlete. He's more of a long strider. He isn't quick in short areas, and man, I just really think he's got to build up his lower half. I've been saying this for 2 years, but his upper body obviously is developed, but that lower half, just doesn't allow him to break tackles. He really isn't physical, and for being 255 pounds, he doesn't break more than enough tackles, and he's got to improve on that. I'm really hoping the Dolphins are going to draft a guy like a Brevin Jordan from Miami, or possibly Kyle Pitts from Florida. If we were to take Pitts at this point, it's looking like it's going to be, a top 10 pick. So, he would definitely elevate the tight end room, because Kyle Pitts from Florida, he can play all over, and, a playmaker like that can only help out Tua. But, this just shows what Tua was working with. He wasn't working with, all-star receivers like he was at Alabama. Guys like Jalen Waddle and Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs, and obviously Heisman Trophy winner Devonta Smith. Those guys were just, creating separation on every play, and that's what we need from this offense moving forward. And luckily, there's a number of receivers in this draft that can do that. Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, even guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown from USC, and Chris Olave from Ohio State. Those guys are quick receivers that, create separation in a hurry. So there's help on the horizon, and we got cap space to sign, a guy like a Chris Godwin, or, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay. There's a number of great guys out there. Corey Davis from Tennessee. We got a number of options to improve the receiving room, and, I'm really hoping the Dolphins are going to do this offseason. And Chris Greer did acknowledge that we've got to get more explosive on both sides of the ball, to be a great, competitive, complete team. So, yeah, looking forward to the Dolphins improving in those areas. So that's it for this video, guys. Make sure to let me know in the comments section what you think about these metrics, about these stats on the Dolphins' weapons that Tua and Fitzpatrick were throwing to. It definitely paints the picture and shows that, he didn't have a lot to work with, and hopefully we can improve on that in 2021. Alrighty, guys, that's it for this one. Fins up, baby.